So I have a bit of a problem. Now, my name's Benj Haisch, and I've been a professional wedding and elopement photographer for the last 18 years now. And because of this, I've realized that I've kind of run into a bit of a dilemma that most kind of just hobbyist people probably don't have. I'm going on a trip to Hawaii with my family, and I'm realizing that all of the lenses that I would normally bring to a gig are far too big for me to just bring along. Can you imagine bringing these on a family trip, like to the beach with kids? I would definitely get a lot of great images, but the likelihood of me actually pulling the camera out of the bag or walking around with it is going to be significantly less. The other option would be to bring something like this 35 1.4 GM along with like a 20mm 1.8 or some kind of combination of those things. So here's the thing, I'm gonna need something that is small and light. I don't want it to be much bigger than even one of these small little prime lenses, but I also want it to be fast enough that I can get a portrait. So I'm probably gonna need it to be at least 50mm. It'll also need to be at least f2.8 to kind of separate my subject from the background and be able to film and take photos in lower light. I'm also gonna want it to be at least 24mm so that I can both take wider photos and film. I find that filming handheld at least 24mm makes things a lot easier, just with stabilization and if I'm running around kind of chasing my kids and stuff like that. And let's be honest, I am already paying for this trip to Hawaii, so I don't really want to spend much more than $1,000. So it obviously doesn't leave me with a ton of different choices.
So in this video, I've teamed up with DPReview and MPB to see if this magical lens even exists and if there are any good ways that I can find this within my budget.
It's been 2-ish years since I've seen you.
Yeah.
You were one of our first collaborators on TikTok. What have you been up to the last 2 years? Back then, we were asking you what advice you would give your younger self. Now we're here 2 years later. A lot has changed.
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot has changed and like not a lot has changed at the same time. But I'm still kind of like mixing both the ideas of doing a lot of like review things and social media and whatnot in the camera space while also being like a full-time working photographer. And we were recording this in the middle of wedding season, so I'm like in between, yeah, like wedding and doing a review on something and then wedding again and then shoots and all sorts of stuff. So,
And you're also preparing to take a much needed break, it sounds like.
yeah, I can just kind of hopefully turn everything off for a few days and yeah, use my camera for fun instead of to make money and do work, you know?
Use your camera for fun instead of as a way to make a living. That's
Yeah.
a nice thing to say. Where are you guys going and what are you thinking about bringing and what are you hoping to shoot out there?
Yeah, we're going to Hawaii in a bit and we're just going to try to relax and see some things and hang out at the beach and have fun.
And when you go on trips like this, do you normally always bring a camera with you?
Oh, for sure. I think there's part of me that can't escape that. And I think that's the fun part about doing something you actually love for a living, right? Where I always bring a camera with me. And I think making sure that I'm documenting my kids' lives well while still doing this for a living is something I really enjoy.
And what about the split between photo and video? Like, is it easy for you to kind of turn your creative working brain off when you're on trips like this? And is that why you're looking for something a little bit different?
Yeah, I think in the past, like I actually did a video where I brought like my Sony FX3 and then I also brought an X100VI. So I just often will show up and just have like a dedicated video camera, dedicated photo camera, and then it's always too many things. It's like, which thing do I bring? Do I bring the video camera? Do I bring the photo camera? So this time I'm going to try to bring one, and I'm going to try to bring I have a Sony Alpha 9 Mark III, which is an absurd camera. But it does both photo and video incredibly well.
Very well.
Very well. Yeah, my only problem is I want to be able to do that kind of setup. I think I sent you the thing about how I was looking for something that is going to be at least 24mm on the wide end, but I want to get to at least 50 on the telephoto end. I want it to be like f2.8, and I don't want it to be this big. That's my main problem, is if I could get it to be like more like prime lens size. That's kind of like what I'm looking for.
Okay, so yeah, so you're looking for something compact, versatile, can open, perform well in low light, video and photo. Is there also something in your prime lens or high-end lens kit that you were sort of, I don't really use this that much? Like, could I maybe make a trade? Like, how are you approaching actually acquiring the gear?
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's definitely a few lenses that, like I have a macro lens that I just never use anymore. Like, so if I could, yeah, trade that in 4 zoom lens that would kind of offset all this kind of stuff, I think that would end up working out really well.
When you're looking to evaluate sort of the pros and cons when you're re-upping on gear, trading gear, what's your process like there?
So I've been reading and looking at DPReview stuff for forever. I think that since I first got a camera, it was one of the resources that I started using along just with like forums and stuff. And I think you guys actually have like a comparison tool that I've used as well to like actually kind of like line them up and see them in a row.
I'm really excited to hear that you brought up the comparison tool. We have one for both cameras and lenses. And essentially the database has been built up over 25 plus years at this point. And
Wow.
I will be the first to admit it's not the easiest thing to find on the site. But when folks come to me with questions like this, or anybody on the editorial team, we point them to that because there's all of that information at your fingertips, and you can actually add multiple focal lengths, brands. You can really customize the specs that you're looking for, very similarly to this use case that you're trying to work through now.
Yeah, I think that that's going to be really helpful, especially like knowing that I don't want something that's like bigger or much bigger at least than like a small prime lens
Mhm.
to be able to like pull it up. Because one of the things I thought of initially when I was thinking about possibly getting this is like, oh, do I just get like another 24-70? But then when I actually like jumped in and tried out that tool, it was very obvious that like, A, that's going to be out of my budget. And then B, I'm going to be significantly still bigger than like a prime lens at that point.
Mhm.
If I was going to just do photos, like I would bring a full suitcase of gear, of course,
Totally.
like because it's fun to have that stuff. But when you're going and taking photos is like part of the purpose that you want to accomplish when you're there, but it's not the main thing.
Yeah.
You want something that's going to like do all of the things that I want to do there, but still like stay as out of the way as possible while still giving me like an equivalent image that I'm looking for, because my standards on how I want something to look are still pretty high.
Even when you're just shooting for yourself.
Even when I'm just doing family stuff. Yeah. My kids will never need to know that they were taken with, you know, thousands of dollars of gear, but it'll be helpful for me to have those images, right?
Totally. It's really a special thing that you get to tell your story that way with your family, and you have these memories forever. And then you're also doing it professionally. And I really love what you talk about in terms of your approach to wedding photography. It feels inherently different to me. And that just feels more real. The documentary style that comes across in your work, and you being really clear with like, this is what you're going to get if you want to work with me. And if you don't, and you're looking for something else, like that's okay too. All right, man. Have a great trip. Travel safe. And yeah, just let us know when you're back and if you need anything.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Cool. All right.
Cool.
Bye.
See ya.
So the first thing I did was jump into the DPReview site, jump to the compare, and then specifically I went down to the lens feature search. At that point, we have a ton of different options from primes to zooms, and that cut down the amount of lenses from 1,308 that are found to 167. Went down to Sony FE. The difference between Sony E and FE is they are the full frame versions. In the optics tab here, I wanted something in that kind of like 16 if we really needed to 24 is like the tightest I wanted to be. So it could be wider than that. That's fine. And then on the maximum focal length, it just, I mean, I want at least 50 millimeters, which is right here in this section anyway. And moving down, we can go all the way down to f2.8. Now, I wanted my weight to be under 1,000 grams, hopefully under even 750. So that leaves us with these three zoom lenses, the Sigma 24-70, the Sony 24-50, and then the Sony 24-70 f2.8 GM Mark II. So I can then click onto the compare tool, and then I can obviously see all of our options here. Now, I'm also a big advocate of just using used gear. So I love that DPReview has this section here that's partnered with MPB to check to see what the used prices are. We can see that the new prices are up over $1,000, but let's check and see what they are selling for on MPB. Now, the thing I love about MPB specifically is that you get to see actual photos of the piece of gear that you will be buying other than just like a stock image. Personally, I've purchased things from MPB in the past as well, and I've always been impressed by how good their rating system is. By buying used and by trading something in as well, it's increasing sustainability because we're not even adding new things to the market. Looks like right off the bat, you can buy a like new model for about $110 less than new. And if you're anything like me, you're going to scroll down to the excellent condition ones at $904 and probably choose that at almost a $200 savings. Now, like I mentioned, I also needed to kind of offload a piece of gear to both offset the price of this, but also to just like clear some inventory and make sure that I wasn't keeping extra gear around that I wasn't using. So I'm going to click on this lower the cost when you trade. I'm going to search for my Sony 90mm macro lens. I would say the lens is in probably excellent condition. It's definitely not like new, but the glass is clean. So I'm going to add this item. And the nice thing is here, I can just click here to get a quote and I'll see generally what my stuff is going to be worth. So it pops up real quick. Looks like for my 90mm macro lens, they're going to give me $430, which then offsets the cost of $904, leaving me paying under $500 for a really good all-around zoom lens. So now what I'm needing to do is just schedule the shipping of this lens to send out to MPB, and we will get this swap going. So I get a label from MPB, I send out the 90 macro, and in comes the new 24-50 f2.8. And while I actually did a review on this lens when it first came out, I forgot how incredibly small and light this thing is. And not only did it check all of my hypothetical boxes, but in practice, it did all the things that I needed it to do. I was able to use the 24mm on the wide end to walk around with my family and get good video clips, and 50mm was tight enough that I was able to get shallowed up the field when I needed to, and generally get all the compositions for photos I wanted. So overall, a huge thanks to MPB for making this super easy. Another massive thanks to DPReview for having me. It's an honor to be on the channel after all of the hours and hours I've actually spent on their site over the years. Again, my name is Benj Haisch, and I have a YouTube channel as well where I do reviews on cameras if you like the way that I put videos together. And you can check out these two videos from DPReview that YouTube thinks you would enjoy.